At the bottom, twist your strands several times by hooking your finger around the strand and twirling each time you rope it. It's no big deal, and this will make sure her twist stays tight all day, and of course she'll look adorable. I can barely tie my shoes, Brett quipped as he walked over and kissed her. I think I'll keep you around just for your twisting skills alone. Oh, you've only begun to see how well I twist, said Jan, winking at him and kissing him back. Wait until you see how well I tie. Peyton was getting nauseous from all the tension on his head and their revolting flirting. It felt nothing like his normal pigtails, as he didn't feel them sway as he moved his head. He could still see a series of bows and clips on the table as he watched out of the corner of his eye, feeling his secured pigtails oddly sitting on the back of each shoulder. He began to get up, thinking she had finished the other side. One more sec, sweetie. I've got to blend these bangs, said Jan as she was brushing and then twisting his bangs. This hair needs a good washing and deep conditioning. He felt a snap on the right and then again on the left as he felt a little pressure at his forehead as she dug in some clips. She gave a quick spritz with her hairspray, and before he knew it she was dragging him from the house, rolling a small suitcase behind her. Thanks again, said Brett. You sure you don't mind taking her tonight? Peyton didn't mind Jan so much, as she was gorgeous, but knew being with her was never good for his masculine image. He caught a glimpse of himself in the hallway mirror as they left, looking more girlish than ever. What he thought were peach shorts actually looked more like a skirt in front and shorts in the back, as he realized he was in a little skirt. On top, his little frilly tank top had a large pink and peach Hello Kitty logo in the center of the shirt, and the same logo was on the outside of each of his peach ankle socks. His hair was back in its daily pigtails, but this time they hung behind his ears, expertly weaved into tight thick rope braids that sat behind his shoulders. The end of each rope braid was held in place by a cute little Hello Kitty ballet ribbon, and above each temple Jan had pulled back his bangs into little twists, which were held off his forehead on each side by small sparkling Hello Kitty snap barrette clips. I was going to have to do her hair anyway, right? Said Jan, rolling down the window as he stuck his head in, sickening Peyton as he watched the brief make-out session. True. Brett smiled and gave her one last kiss. Then I may as well take her, or you'd be the only father there and that would be awkward for all the girls, said January. I never had a daughter, so you know I never mind getting her ready. See you tomorrow. Have a nice sleepover, Peyton. Brett grinned as Jan was backing out of the driveway. Sleepover? Peyton asked, shocked. At your house. Yup, it'll be so much fun. Jan began driving away. Johnny's very excited, but first we've got some girls' stuff to do, honey. Peyton had that nasty feeling in his stomach again as they stopped at a number of stores as Jan was a pro, buzzing in and out buying things. After a few hours they finally picked up Johnny and he soon found himself at the park. They were on swings next to each other and sat having a little picnic, relaxing a little as he played like any other kid. It was strange watching the other kids toss the football around as Jan had him playing hopscotch. Come on kids, said Jan, packing up and then wiping his back and skirt. You're getting filthy sliding and it's time to go. They got in the car without issue and drove for about a half hour, until finally they pulled up at her job. What are we doing here? Asked Peyton as Jan got out. You're such a nervous Nilly, sweetie, said Jan, taking his hand. Washing out that dirty mop of yours and getting you ready. You're going to have so much fun tonight. Tonight, said Peyton as they walked inside. I thought I was sleeping over at your house. You are later, but first we've got to get you cleaned up. I'll be taking you to Francine in an hour, said Jan, leading him to the back. Unless you'd rather come to Peyton's game again tonight? I think they're playing that same team again. No thanks, said Peyton as she wrapped her cape around him. I'll hang with Francine. I figured as much, Jan giggled as she took out his braids. Now let's wash your hair and let me do something a little fancier for the party, and then you can get dressed." "Party?" replied Peyton, surprised as she switched on the water and he sat up. "What party?" "Oh, I hope I didn't ruin the surprise," said Jan, pushing him back down and wetting his hair. "Francesca's taking you to her niece's party with her. I won't say more than that, but I know from other people going there that you are going to just love it. She's such a good babysitter. She's a gem and certainly more fun to be with than watching a boring baseball game." Jan shampooed and then conditioned his hair, as the floral smell filled his nostrils. When she finished, she wrapped his head in a towel and brought him to her chair. She switched on the blow dryer, stopping any further conversation as she dragged her brush through his hair, drying it. When she switched it off, he was expecting the usual pigtails, but she surprised him as it just hung loosely in a straight style. "Your dress is hanging in the back room on the doorknob," said January. "I forgot the bag with your shoes in the car. Get dressed and I'll be back in a minute with them, and to finish your hair now that it's dry." Peyton walked over, taking the hanger from the doorknob and locked the door. It couldn't be worse than what he was wearing, and he stepped out of his Hello Kitty outfit and opened the small attached bag, seeing the white ruffled panty. He lifted the white plastic off the dress and rolled his eyes before he quickly stripped down, knowing Jan would be back soon. He knew the drill, changing his panties and pulling the dress over his head. His did his best, zipping up half the back, and opened the door, seeing Jan awaiting him in his bare feet. "Are you just adorable or what? Let me help you with that, sweetie." Jan zipped up the back as she came in. "You like this one? I picked it with your dad. I figured we go a little more delicate for the party." Peyton was through with any compliments as she spun him, tying the bow and the back of the dress. He sat back on the bench as she lifted his right foot and then the left, slipping on his socks and shoes. She led him by the hand back to her chair and wasted no time snapping a long cape around his neck, covering him completely. He watched in the mirror as she took the end of her rat-tailed comb, creating a straight part at his left temple and then another at his right temple, securing most of the long hair behind his bangs on top of his head into a high half pony, winding in a little band. It sat sticking straight up as she pulled it taut and then released it as it sat atop his head like a little fountain. She now separated the sections beneath the part in front of each ear and inserted a long clip, separating them. She stepped behind him now, brushing over and over as he felt her again, creating a part from left to right near the nape of his neck and twisting as he watched her snap in a large jaw clip. "Okay, sweetie, just tilt forward for me a little," said Jan as he could see her holding a large can of hairspray in her hand. "This will be a good test to see how your hair holds a spiral anyway." It was but a few seconds as he felt her separating a little section to the extreme left and could see her stretching it outward in the mirror. He watched as she coated it, feeling the stickiness of the pink aerosol spray near the nape of his neck, and could clearly see the gold spiral iron wind into his hair. Maybe he should have chosen Little League in the bleachers, he thought, as she released the curl and he saw the thick banana curl sit softly on his shoulders, but there was no turning back now as she began the next section. He couldn't really see the back of his head when she was completely behind him, but he knew exactly what was happening as she filled his shoulders with curls. Once she did the bottom section, she moved up, doing the next section, and after 15 minutes she had finished the 4th row. She placed the iron down now and stepped out in front of him, lifting his chin. She now worked on the small section she had created in front of his left ear, diving up the small section. He could see out of the corner of his eye as she again saturated it in hairspray, but this time took a very thin round iron and wound it vertically into his hair. He could really hear it hiss near his eardrum before she slowly unraveled it and repeated the process a few times before repeating it on the right. He could see her lift the small iron again and worked on the top pony for a good 10 minutes before she stepped back, satisfied with her work. "I've been dying to curl this hair all week and I'm glad I finally got the chance," said Jan as he again felt her pulling at the section on top of his head and adjusting it. "No way I am letting you grow up so fast. Wait until they see you at this party. You're adorable." Jan now pulled the cape from Peyton as he instantly felt a cold shiver down his spine. "Maybe I should change and come to Johnny's game," said Peyton, ready to pass out. "I'm his good luck charm, right?" "You are, sweetie, but don't be nervous. The party will be fun and you two can be together later," replied Jan, holding up a mirror behind his head. "No way could you sit in those dirty stands in a dress this delicate, and I didn't put all this work into your hair to have the wind destroy it in no time." Peyton closed his eyes for a moment and then reopened them, realizing nothing was changing as he stared at the rows of spiral curls layered on his back. As she put the mirror down, it was hard not to focus on the smaller tight curls that streamed down in every direction like curled ribbons from behind a huge blue bow at the center of the top of his head. The same tight curls hung in 4 or 5 permed-like strands in front of each ear, and his bangs sat as they normally did, slightly rolled under on his forehead. "Can't stop looking at yourself, I see." Jan smiled. "I'm in love with you in curls too. Don't worry, I'll curl it more often for you, sweetie. Now come, let's get you there." It had been a week to forget for Peyton as he stepped out of Jan's chair. He followed her across the room, unable to remove his eyes from his own reflection as he watched some little girly girl's curls bounce from his head as he walked. His dress was also the fanciest he had been in so far, as he stopped behind Jan as she made a phone call. He waited as she gathered some items, staring at himself in a sapphire blue velvet party dress. On top it had short puffy sleeves at his shoulders, and at the round neckline hung a doily-like white lace collar. At the waist sat a thick white ribbon tied in the back in a huge bow, and throughout the entire bodice it sparkled in a glitter-like manner. The dress was shorter than they normally put him in, puffing out under a number of layers of white crinoline, and he lifted his foot, seeing all the elaborate lace around the ankle of his short socks above his blue velvet Mary Jane shoes. Jan took his hand, leading him to her car, and straightened his dress as he sat, and she adjusted his seatbelt. When he sat back, he could see how all the layers popped up, and he realized why he had in the ruffled panty since he had on no tights. "Sit forward or you'll flatten some curls." "Please try to sit like a lady in this dress at the party, Peyton," said Jan as they drove. "You tend to sit like a boy with your legs open sometimes." He sat looking out the window as they drove, while she mostly talked on the phone. They arrived at a large multicolored castle-like storefront, and immediately Peyton knew this couldn't be good, as they exited the car. She took him by the hand, leading him in, and they immediately spotted Francesca waiting for him. "OMG, Peyton, you look incredible," said Francesca, running right over and hugging him. "Oh Jan, you've outdone yourself here." "Thank you," replied Jan, loving the compliment. "She is so precious." "It's like you brought me Peyton's little sister," said Francesca. "The bangs with her curls are going to be perfect for what I had in mind for her." "So I can go, right, because I've got to get to my son's game?" asked Jan, looking at her watch and handing Peyton a present for the birthday girl. "Yes, go ahead," said Francesca, flipping her wrist. "I get it from here. I'll bring her to you later." Peyton looked around, seeing a bunch of other little girls, and he stood there dreading this entire experience. "Aunt Cindy, this is little Peyton," said Francesca. "I'll leave her with you while I go change, okay?" "No problem," said Cindy. "Come on, sweetie, and I'll introduce you to the other girls. You're going to have so much fun today, dear." Peyton was immediately embarrassed, knowing he was 2 or 3 years older than the other girls, but realized he no longer looked it. He was brought to an area where they were gathering as he sat quietly while they played dolls. He was happy to be mostly excluded, knowing no one, and after about 15 minutes, another 10 or so girls arrived. "Oh look, honey," said a woman. "It's the new girl from your dance class." He looked up, startled hearing Francesca's voice, and was stunned seeing how she was dressed. "So, welcome all my pretty young maids to the party," said Francesca. "I'll need everyone to line up and follow me, and we'll begin your adventure." This was no party like he had ever attended before, seeing Francesca dressed as a princess in a long yellow gown with overdone makeup and her hair pinned back. Peyton had no idea what to expect as he followed with the other girls. They weaved down a long hallway, and before he knew it, they were each handed a doll. "Girls, everyone pick an outfit and dress your doll for their tea party," said Francesca. Peyton had no idea what he was doing as he watched the other girls and grabbed a few things, dressing his doll. "I'll help you," said Francesca, handing him some clothes and then taking some back. "I think Aurora would be perfect for her, Peyton. I really do think pink is your color, girl, so let's make everything match." Peyton rolled his eyes and dressed his doll in the pink outfits as she showed him. He sat with the other girls playing tea party with the dolls, and then Francesca got them all up dancing. He felt so strange dancing with all these other girls, and even more out of place as they had pizza and cake, talking about things that made no sense to him. Finally they all handed in their presents and he seemed relieved, thinking it was almost over until Francesca stood at the front of the table unrolling a scroll. "Princesses, please line up in the order I call you," said Francesca. "I need all my Cinderellas first, followed by Princess Jasmine, then Belle, Little Mermaids, Snow White, and my only little Aurora today, Princess Peyton at the end. This is what you've all been waiting for, girls, so let's get moving." Peyton was slightly confused, not really knowing what was happening as he got on the end of the line. They followed Francesca to a large dressing room. Instantly he got nervous as girls were being handed costumes and beginning to change with some of the moms. "Turn around, Peyton, and I'll help you," said Francesca, undoing the buttons at the top of his dress, and before he could even blink, she pulled it over his head, lifting it off him. He was startled, immediately putting one hand near his groin area to hide his little package as Francesca grabbed the other. "Come on, help me, honey," said Francesca, dropping the costume over his head and grabbing the other arm. "It's chaos in here and I have to help some other girls too, you know. Now take off your shoes and socks, and I'll hang them with your dress." Quickly she zipped up and fastened the back of his costume as he saw how crazy it was with everyone changing. He realized there was nothing to see concealed under his little ruffled panties as he sat down and unbuckled his shoes. He kicked them off and then waited for Francesca to be finished helping others. Another mom came over and sat him down, trying shoes on his feet, and before he knew it he was in some little plastic low-heeled shoes. "Come on, Aurora," said the mom, taking his hand, and another girl's leading them out of the dressing room and down the hall. He was stunned, realizing he was now inside a mini salon, seeing all the girls from the party hopping into chairs as the woman helped him into his. The second he was seated, a teenage girl stepped behind him and immediately cranked the pedal, lifting his chair up a few rungs higher and wrapped a glittery silver cape around his neck. "Welcome, Princess Peyton. I'm Lindsay and I'll be assisting with your transformation to Princess Aurora today," said the girl in the perkiest voice. "Are you ready for your magical day, Princess?" "What does that mean?" asked Peyton, ready to jump from the chair as he looked around, seeing them begin working on the other girls. I'm not sure." "It means take a deep breath and don't be uptight, Princess Peyton," said Francesca, putting her hands on his shoulders, calming him down as they spun his chair just like the other girls away from the mirror. "I know you were cooped up getting all these curls, but sit back and relax, because trust me, you'll enjoy the pampering." Francesca rubbed his shoulders for a moment as he looked down, seeing Lindsay take a little sponge and began dotting against his face. It was shocking as she took her little compact in hand as he could feel the little creamy sensation across his cheeks and then under his chin as she blended. He felt ready to wet himself seeing her swish her blush brush into a rose-type color, and she lifted his chin as he felt the soft strokes glide across his cheeks. He tried not to panic, but it wasn't easy as she approached, pinching his lashes as she curled them. He did his best following instructions, opening and closing his eyes while she worked a little with her pencil, but just dipping her mascara wand in and out of its tube was quite disturbing. She coated his lashes a few times and then worked on his eyeshadow as he sat there watching Lindsay sharpen a dark pink pencil. He opened wide as she instructed as she outlined his mouth and then knew what was coming next as she filled in his lips with a little brush. "I'll help you, Lindsay," said Francesca as she walked behind Peyton. "For this precious princess, we're doing the works." "Thanks," said Lindsay as she opened a little table and placed his left hand on it while he felt Francesca taking the bow from his hair. He watched as Lindsay rubbed at each of his nails, removing the pink polish and massaged his fingers a little. When she finished, she opened a kit that looked like it had all sorts of small stickers on it and stuck the first one on the nail of his index finger. He couldn't believe how quickly they seemed to almost melt onto his nails as she held his fingers briefly under a small ultraviolet light, and before he knew it, all of his nails were covered with multi-tonal glitter-filled fuchsia decals. He instantly knew the smell of nail polish as she began clear-coating each finger while Francesca snipped out the band from his high pony. It was odd feeling her dig into his scalp, seemingly undoing some of Jan's work as he could feel some tension and weight on his head. Finally, as Lindsay finished triple-coating his nails in clear polish, Francesca held a plastic mask over his face as he had both hands under nail dryers. "I give you Princess Aurora," announced Francesca. "Let us honor this precious beauty." Peyton couldn't really see too well through the semi-transparent plastic mask, but could feel the hairspray circle his head. "Behold our new beautiful princess," said Francesca, spinning his chair towards the mirror and tearing off his cape. "Princess, please enjoy your reveal." It was like a bad Halloween dream as Peyton stared at his fully made-up face, now dressed as Sleeping Beauty. He stood up and walked toward the mirror in a floor-length, bright pink elegant velvet and satin character dress with white off-the-shoulder pointed peplum collar. The authentic dress, of course, was decorated with beautiful gold, sparkle, jewel, and sheer embellishments, and had a full long underwire skirt giving it some shape. Around his neck was a gold sparkle choker, and her signature gold tiara crown sat atop his flowing curls, which had now been completely coated in glittered hairspray. On his feet were little clear sling-back low heels, and his fingertips were coated in glimmering fuchsia decals. His lips were a gentle glossed cotton candy pink, now sparkling as he licked the flavor. His cheeks a lovely rosy red, and his eyeshadow was blended from a soft to coral pink for accent. His lashes looked incredible long and were curled ever so beautifully, and his eyes stood out like never before, defined by a thin liner. He felt teary-eyed as the 10-year-old baseball star he once was nowhere to be found, replaced by a princess as Francine interrupted his mini-trance. "Come, Princess Aurora," said Francine, yanking his hand. "Your prince has arrived." "What?" said Peyton, startled as Francine led him off. He was again in line with all the Cinderellas and Snow Whites as he looked up, seeing a series of teenagers dressed as princes waiting. It was revolting, realizing he was in line to be photographed as a princess as the girls all took their turns. When it was finally his turn, they took some individual shots, posing him in front of a castle background, and then had him lie down and close his eyes like Sleeping Beauty. He heard the flash bulb snap and he was instantly sickened, popping open his eyes as he felt a kiss touch his lips. He looked up, seeing Johnny dressed as Prince Philip, and before he could even react, watched him lean in and kiss him harder the second time. "Easy there, Prince," said Francine, stepping in now and helping Peyton to his feet. "I know she's beautiful, but this is a G-rated party." She posed them, handing Peyton a bouquet of flowers as he stood there dazed, looking at a touch of his lipstick on Johnny. A few more pictures were snapped until Jan waved over Francine as Peyton and Johnny were ushered over, sitting with the other kids. "Why would you do that?" asked Peyton, scolding Johnny and still somewhat stunned. "I thought you were at your game." "My game's been over for hours," said Johnny. "You know, besides me, my team stinks. I'm just more of a lover than an athlete." "I know you like that better." "You have no idea what I like," screamed Peyton. "You know nothing about me." "I know you're prettier than any other girl I've ever seen," said Johnny, taking his hand. "Pretty enough for a macho kid like me to dress up like this." "Kids, we have to get moving," said Jan, giving her son a stern look as Peyton was almost sick. "We've got a stop to make before our little sleepover." He followed them, hearing his little heels click on the sidewalk, and stared down at his princess gown. He sat in the back seat with Johnny as Francine was in the front with January. "So, I think Miss Peyton made a very beautiful princess today, Francine," said Jan, looking at him in his rear-view mirror. "Oh, I definitely agree," said Francine, turning and looking at him. "She's been quite the stunner, hasn't she?" "No doubt about it," Jan grinned. "I talked to your dad, honey, and I believe there's lot more princess time is in her future, according to what we've agreed upon." "Great," mumbled Peyton, rolling his eyes. "I'm glad you agree, honey, because if I would have known how much you loved wearing makeup, we could have experimented all week." Francine smiled. "But we've got plenty of time for that." "Sounds like so much fun, but I'm sleeping over at Jan's tonight, so maybe some other time," replied Peyton, rolling his eyes. "Take it slow, Francine," said Jan as she parked. "I'm trying to keep her in pigtails and cute dresses, and you're growing her up too fast on me." "Don't worry, we'll find a happy middle ground for her dance recital," said Francine as she got out. "I know. I heard they're in red lipstick and tight spirals with big headbands and red sequin tutus." "Shouldn't that be a lot of fun?" said Jan, helping Peyton out. Jan took Peyton by one hand and Francine held the other as they walked down the block with Johnny. As they turned the corner, he was surprised seeing them leading him into Dr. Mullen's office. "What are we doing here?" Peyton asked, feeling the grip of their hands tighten. "Oh, just having a little chat before our sleepover," said Jan as they marched into her office, and she pointed to Johnny to wait in the reception area. "You wait here over, Johnny. We'll be back in a few minutes." "Have a seat, princess," said Dr. Mullen, spinning around in her chair. "Don't you look adorable with yourself all made up?" "She does," said Kara, coming in now as Peyton's jaw dropped. "Doesn't she?" Not expecting us all together at once, Jan smirked. "Were you, princess?" Well," mumbled Peyton in shock. "Honey, the cat's out of the bag." Jan grabbed his arm. "You better talk." "Jan, relax," said Kara, staying professional as Peyton was trembling. "So my precious Peyton, it's unfortunately come to our attention that regrettably we've all been used," said Dr. Mullen. "You see, we've found out that Brett has enjoyed being a real player and played all of us. You're too young, so I won't go into any of the details, but I'd like to know, is there anything you'd like to tell us before we confront him?" "Doc, please," cried Peyton, stuttering. "He forced me. I couldn't speak up." "I'm sorry. There's a lot you don't know." "No, there's not," said Jan, scolding him. "If you remember, that woman Candace you met at Little League also has a daughter in your dance class. Between Candace, Francine, and a bunch of other mothers, we've connected everything. Women talk, honey. You'll learn that someday. And obviously you wouldn't want to be played or deceived either, would you?" said Dr. Mullen. "I guess not," said Peyton, looking down. "Especially by someone in such an underhanded way, and you've been pawned off on us while he's been getting around." Jan was annoyed. "That's the part that really pisses me off. Do you understand that?" "Yes," said Peyton, meekly avoiding eye contact. "We realize how sensitive a little flower like you is, and we want to protect you while we certainly make sure he gets what's coming to him," said Kara, bending down and talking to Peyton as she lifted his chin. "Peyton, we're not here to confront you, and I know this has to be hard for you." "You're not?" said Peyton, relieved. "No, honey," said Dr. Mullen. "We think you're beautiful and all of us have had a nice week with you." "Really?" said Peyton, grinning. "So I'm not in any trouble?" "You're not, sweetie," said Dr. Mullen. "You're fine the way you are and you want it to stay that way, right?" Is that a yes? Said Jan as he gave a slight nod. Speak up and clearly. Yes, said Peyton. Okay, you run along with Francine now, dear, said Dr. Mullen. She'll be watching you and Johnny tonight, and we've got some things to deal with. Peyton found himself wondering what they were going to do to his brother, knowing Brett deserved whatever he got as he walked out with Francine as they took Johnny with them. It seemed like a normal day at least for him, if being dressed like a princess could be considered normal, but he was relieved that they didn't suspect him of any wrongdoing. He was all smiles, thinking that this was almost over as they would surely all confront and break up with his brother, and he could soon go back to his normal life. I've never seen you glow like this before, Peyton, said Francine as they were in the cab. I'm so happy to finally see you smiling. Oh, thanks, said Peyton, grinning. Not having to hide all his running around makes me feel so much better. You know how much I like everyone. And they all love you too, said Francesca, hugging him. I'm sure it's a relief, but I got a feeling it's more than that. You can tell me? What do you mean? Said Peyton, confused. I know it must be hard growing up without women in the house to help you with the things you're going through. Here, let me fix you, said Francesca, turning his face and taking out her lipstick and freshening his. I remember how much I loved wearing makeup when I was young too, and I never looked this good as a princess. It would be tough to wipe the smile off my face too. As they got to Jan's house, Francine was sitting with Johnny and Peyton as they played well with each other as all three played some board games at the kitchen table. After a few hours, Jan came in kissing her son and Peyton before walking into her bedroom. Guys, you two go put your pajamas on while I talk to Francine for a minute, said January Peyton. They gave you a princess nightgown as a favor from the party. It's on my bed, so go put it on and I'll wash all the makeup off you. Peyton ran upstairs, happy to change out of the costume but just as annoyed pulling the long pink Sleeping Beauty nightgown over his head. Very cute on her. You make the most adorable princess, honey. Francine hugged him. See you tomorrow, you two. Good night. Sit, honey, said January. You play with Johnny while I get you ready for bed. I'll be a while so you guys can have some fun. Set up everything for the new game while I clean her face. Peyton sat there as she scrubbed his face with some moist towelettes. It was a relief to see the black and then pink smudges filling the towelettes as he opened and closed his eyes. Finally, after her last full wipe, the sheets were mostly clean and she took a white moisturizing solution, rubbing it onto the skin on his face. Ah, now little Peyton's back, teased Jan, taking the bow from his hair and brushing. You just sit and play now and don't mind me, okay, sweetie? I've got a lot of hairspray to brush out and some work to do. Peyton sat playing Monopoly with Johnny as they shared some laughs while Jan seemed to be brushing forever. Finally, when she took a break, she left and then 10 minutes later returned with a large spray bottle and a plastic bin. She placed a little tissue-type box filled with small papers next to him and then opened the container as Peyton now saw a large array of thin-colored rollers on the table next to him. What's all this? Said Peyton, looking terrified as he turned his neck and watched her pinch open a large jaw clip. I thought you were brushing all those curls out. I did, sweetie, said Jan, turning his head forward, combing down the back before closing in the large jaw clip pinning most of his hair on top of his head. I'm guessing this is your first set? Set? Asked Peyton, gulping as she began saturating the small loose sections at the nape of his neck. Don't worry, let's just play, said Johnny, reaching over and taking his hand. I've seen my mom do this many times. I'm pretty sure it doesn't hurt. But why now? Said Peyton, surprised. I thought we were going to bed soon. I know this is all new for you, honey. Hand me a paper, please, said Jan, stretching a very small section from the nape of his neck as she took the paper from him. It's better to be tired so you sleep well with them in. I'm sleeping with these on my head, said Peyton, stunned as she rolled it in and secured it. Yup, said Jan, smiling. Sets like this need to take, honey. Oh, I'm a rough sleeper. Maybe we can just do some pigtails, said Peyton, trying to get out of it. This probably won't work. I bounce around a lot when I sleep. Glad you told me, honey, and I'm so happy you love my pigtails, said Jan, holding out her hand for another paper. But don't worry, I'm using a super hold setting lotion and I've got a few tricks to handle things so you sleep well and don't wreck your hair. Peyton realized he wasn't wiggling out of getting his hair set as Jan stretched strand after strand, applying the rollers. After she did a half dozen or so, she removed the jaw clip, selecting the next sections and then snapped it back in place, working on the new sections. Peyton sat there playing the games with Johnny during this annoying, tedious process, seeing one thin pink roller after another leave the container. Are they supposed to be this tight? Said Peyton as he could feel the weight changing on his head. I'm getting tired, and can you loosen some of them? You'll adjust, sweetie, said Jan, tapping his shoulder. Stay strong for another half hour and you can watch some TV while I finish. Fine, said Peyton, rolling his eyes, seeing Johnny glance up at his hair every once in a while. Finally, she was rolling right behind his bangs as he noticed her taking a large roller instead of the thin ones. Just your bangs, sweetie, and you guys watch some TV as I know you're getting tired, said Jan, rolling his bangs in a large blue roller away from his face and using some bobby pins. She used 2 more large ones and then ever so cautiously stretched a black thin hairnet over all the rollers. She took his hand, knowing he was tired, and led him to the couch with Johnny. She placed a few pillows behind his back and he sat down, realizing he could not lean his head back purposely. She switched on the television as he fidgeted, trying to get comfortable, not used to the tension on his head or the position he was sitting as she returned, handing him a glass. Drink this, it will help and the heat will relax you too, said Jan as he drank down the juice. Once it switches off you can head off to bed. I just want to take the initial dampness away before you hit the sack. Peyton turned his neck, seeing her roll over a large bonnet dryer behind the couch and adjust the height and angle. Before he could even say a word, she turned him facing back towards the television and lowered it over his rollers. It did feel good as the hot air surrounded his head and he was becoming drowsy after an episode of cartoons he could barely hear. Finally, after another 15 minutes it clicked off, and he could barely keep his eyes open, and Jan brought him to their guest room and he was out like a light. Francine, you're here already? Said Peyton, wandering into the kitchen. Yeah, Jan let you sleep in, honey. Francine handed him a bowl. Have some cereal. She had to go to work, so I'm watching you two for a while. When's she coming back? Asked Peyton. I'd like to get all this off my head. Can you take them out? That's her department, honey, said Francine. You look cute in all those curlers, but they'll be out soon as Jan's on her way back home. She had some critical work to handle this morning. As soon as you finish eating, I'll help you get ready for dance. Dance again? Whined Peyton, milking his cereal, wasting time as Jan was texting away on her phone. Save the attitude, Missy, said Francine, taking nothing from him and opening the button on the back of his nightgown. Go change and get right back out here. Jan said your tights are on the bed and your outfit is hanging on her bathroom doorknob. Be careful pulling it over your head. Peyton went upstairs and took the panties and tights from her bed. It wasn't too bad slipping into the thin white panties, and then he pulled on the nude Danskins tights. He went into her bathroom, revolted when he saw his outfit. He heard Jan coming downstairs now and quickly removed it from its hanger and stepped into it. He wiggled his body, pulling the leotard-type material up as it tightly molded around him, and slipped his arms into the long stretchy sleeves. How pretty is that? Said Jan, coming in startling him. Here, let me straighten you a little and I'll help you on with your shoes. I'm sure you're dying for me to get those rods off your head, right? Yes, please, said Peyton as Jan wasted no time twisting the leotard just right until she was happy with the way it sat on him. Dying like you can't believe. That's all nerves, Peyton. Lean back on the edge of the bed, but don't sit on the skirt, said Jan, lifting it as he leaned back while she put on his shoes. These costumes are gorgeous, but so delicate. She lifted his left leg, sliding on his shoe and fastening the two buckles, and then did the right. When she finished, she took him by the hand back downstairs, seating him oh so carefully on a small stool, fluffing out the skirt as he sat while she stepped behind him, unpinning his hairnet. He felt her unroll the first roller, stretching it, and felt the odd sensation of his curl springing back as she nodded, seemingly happy with the result. It took well, honey, said Jan, feeling it and then all around his head. They should hold up well today. It was like a mini sigh of relief seeing the hairnet tossed onto the kitchen table, but it was odd as she re-rolled the curler she took out. She covered his eyes with her palm and circled his head with a silver aerosol spray. When she finished, she took out her hairdryer, setting the hairspray circling him with it on low, and then gave his hair a few minutes to cool down as she made herself some coffee. She sipped and chatted on the phone, gossiping a little before finally turning her attention back to Peyton as she began removing the rods at the back of his head while she gabbed. He was actually pretty surprised seeing how many rods were being tossed back in the container as finally Jan hung up. That's some afro you got, Peyton, said Johnny, coming in and startling him. Behave, Johnny, said his mother. I expect you to be complimenting her, young man. No teasing. Girls are sensitive when they've spent hours to look beautiful. Sorry, Peyton, said Johnny. You look pretty with a perm. A perm, said Peyton, stunned, reaching up to feel his hair. Don't listen to him. He knows nothing about girls or hair, but that's better, Johnny, said Jan, pushing his hands back down. He's just seen me perm many women in this kitchen, but I would never perm anyone's hair this young. It's just tightly curled, Peyton, for today. It's the style your teacher chose for recital to go with your costume. Honestly, I think it's perfect for you. Recital, whined Peyton. I just started. It's recital pictures today, silly, teased Jan, taking the large rollers from his bangs. Now relax, everyone in class will be in pictures with you, honey. I realize you're nowhere near recital ready. That takes months, but Kara thinks you'll at least know a few steps so you can participate in this first one, and then you'll advance as time goes on. She says you're a natural. Peyton was doing the math in his head, calming down a bit, figuring his dad would be back before he would have to take the stage. He watched Jan open a package and unwrap a red sequin band and then another with a circular flat plastic device. The plastic device was round like the size of a CD, but flexible and filled with groove-type teeth like a comb. Okay, lean forward and don't fidget, said Jan as she put both her hands inside the round device and was stretching it open. It's only itchy for a moment, but I have to lift your curls and dig it into your scalp a little while I get it in tight. This won't show, but it'll hold everything where we need it. He leaned forward as she dug in the sharp little points of the combs on the back of his head first as he felt it lift his curls off his neckline. She worked her way from the nape, precisely digging it in on the left and right side, alternating as it squeezed in, and then finally she really stretched it forward before it dug through from his forehead until it stopped at the middle of his head. She filled her hands with gel now, greasing all the hair from his forehead back, and then took a small handheld comb, creating the little distinct seams on his head. She inserted bobby pin after bobby pin, securing the tight round plastic flexi comb exactly where she wanted it, and then again saturated his head in hairspray. That feels so strange, said Peyton, watching her take pin after pin from her teeth and coughing a little from the fumes. Is all this necessary? It all feels so tight and sticky. Maybe not today since you're not dancing, said Jan, taking a thick red sequin headband and stretching it open. Sorry, I'm a perfectionist, honey. I just want it perfect, and these are the times it's not great having bangs as I have to make sure they stay slicked back and blended. You'll see how pretty this looks when I'm done. She slid on the stretchy headband surrounding his curls and positioned it, hiding all the pins. He wasn't exactly sure what she was doing as she lifted her hot glue and pressed on the headband, but it wasn't more than a few seconds before she was picking at his curls, lifting and pinning the headband. She took out a curling iron with the tiniest barrel and redid a few curls, and then for one last time saturated the back of his head in spray. "Let me get my purse and we're off, sweetie." "Johnny, come on," said Jan, calling to her son. "I'll need you to remember to sit forward in the car, okay?" He could see Johnny looking him up and down as he followed Jan towards the door. It was a weekend from hell, as it was hard to believe it was possible to be more girly than he was as a princess, but that's how he felt staring at himself in the hallway mirror before they left. It didn't look this bad when he pulled it on, but he now got the full effect of himself in his dance recital costume. It was completely over the top as he stared at himself in a red sequin long-sleeve leotard, which had the most delicate 4 layers red crinoline with tiny embedded scattered rhinestones comprising the skirt. On his legs were beige shiny tights, and on his feet were in red patent tap shoes with big poofy crinoline bows across the buckles. His hair had been plastered back off his forehead and lifted off the sides and back before disappearing into the thick red sequin headband. He realized Jan had hot glued a few large red feathers and some rhinestones to the headband, which were offset to the right, adding to the decorative look. He turned his neck a little, getting the full impact of why he slept in all those rollers, as all the curls seemed to explode, stacked one on top of another from the inside of the headband, sitting perfectly in small precision barrel curls all perched at the back of head. "Yes, you are gorgeous, but that doesn't mean we should be late, Peyton," said Jan, breaking his trance as he followed her outside. She arranged him in the back seat with pillows, making sure he couldn't lean back to flatten his curls or wrinkle the crinoline. They drove to his dance school, and the moment she brought him in, it was organized chaos. "Peyton, hurry over, dear," yelled Kara. "Jan, can you help?" It was nothing like the pampered princess process, as he could see a bunch of mothers working with makeup scattered everywhere. They sat him at simple lunch table next to 2 other girls from his class as Kara was jumping back and forth between them, blending and powdering. When she finished, they all moved to the next table as an older woman sat with a huge tray of false lashes. As she squeezed his lashes with a curler with one hand, she was measuring false lash after lash against his other eye with the other hand. There was no gentleness involved, as before he knew it they were being pressed in, placed and squeezed, being curled with his. She moved like lightning, coating lash after lash 3 or 4 times before feeling another mother twist him around on the bench and brushing at his cheeks and lids. Another woman then approached him with lipstick. "I remember you from Little League," said the woman. "I'm Candace, little Susie's mom. How are you today, Peyton?" "Fine," said Peyton as he watched her dip a lip brush into the tube. "Peyton's such a pretty name." "Pucker for me, honey," said Candace, coating his lips a few times. "Now rub them just a touch." The second she finished, he found himself being dragged away with some other girls by mothers he didn't even know, as he found himself suddenly in the next room waiting his turn for his individual shots. It was only 5 minutes, but it seemed like an hour as they posed and positioned him for shot after shot. He was sickened seeing the poses on the big video screen after each one, astounded that he appeared to look natural in makeup yesterday as compared to the overdone makeup he had on today. He felt like a paint factory exploded on his face as shimmery blush and glittered pink eye stood out on top of his powdered porcelain complexion. No one would certainly mistake the huge false lashes he had on for his, which had some silver glittered individual lashes mixed into the dark long ones matching the silver glittery eyeliner across the outside of the upper lash, and if that wasn't enough flash, you also couldn't mistake the scarlet red lip gloss that shined like a beacon when he viewed it on screen, and realizing how perfectly it matched the red sequins in his costume. Finally they finished with his individual shots, and then he waited again, and before he knew it he was being posed and positioned with the other girls from his class. It was nauseating doing all the poses, and then finally they were all seated together as he hoped he was finished. "Tara, I'd like to use Peyton in the big shoot," said the photographer. She's got those perfect curls and that cute round face. Most of the other girls have those cheap clip-on curls which don't photograph well, and her makeup just came out perfectly. Sure, go ahead, said Tara, looking over at January. She's a cutie, and obviously I'm sure having a professional hairdresser didn't hurt. Is that the mom? Said the photographer. Do we have full consent? No, but let me check, said Tara, looking through some papers and making a call on her cell. Okay, we're good. I have the sign-off and her dad was fine with everything. I'll get her scheduled. Peyton sat there annoyed that he would be taking more pictures, but finally was relieved as Jan interrupted. Change in plans again, said Jan, grabbing him and dragging him off. This saga gets better every moment, and sorry Tara, you'll need to get another model. I need her, said Tara. We have a contract. Deal with her father on that, said Jan, abruptly leaving. They got in Jan's car as she was annoyed now and no longer careful how she positioned him sitting in his outfit as she basically pushed him in. She was silent as they drove, and instantly he knew more trouble must be brewing from her attitude. Here again, said Peyton as they got out at Dr. Mullen's office. Yup. You're heading home with your father, said Jan, taking his suitcase from her trunk. Unless you want to sleep over again. I'm sure Johnny wouldn't mind. Oh, sorry, got it, said Peyton. That's okay. Not that it wasn't tremendous fun, but I'd like to get home and back to normal. I figured as much, said Jan, grinning as they walked inside the office. Come on in, Peyton, said Dr. Mullen as they came in, and she called down to her receptionist. Take a seat, honey. Your dad will be right in. As the side door to the office opened, Peyton's jaw dropped as his actual father walked in. He had no idea what to say as his father stared at him, looking him over before he sat down across the room from him. Never would have guessed it, said Peyton's dad, shaking his head. You're right, Mandy, he is much cuter in person than in all the pictures you emailed me last night. Dad, screamed Peyton. You're back. You're a week early. Let me. Yup, and I know everything, said his father, interrupting him. Haven't you and your brother been just a bundle of surprises while I've been gone? Dad, please let me explain, said Peyton. It all started with some problems in school, and then it just spiraled from there. This was all forced on me? Oh, it spiraled already, Miss Princess Twinkle Toes, said his father, grabbing his hand and leading him to the next room. Did you knock him out, Dad? Chirped Peyton. Whatever you did, he deserved it. He's coming to, said Dr. Mullen, pressing the button as her patent's chair was rising. How you feeling, Brett? Dr. Mullen pulled off the mask as Peyton couldn't help but chuckle, seeing his brother drooling. Give him a second for his double vision to clear, said Dr. Mullen, pulling off the nitro mask. Hey, Dad, you're home? Said Brett. Holy shit! All three of you are here. What the hell am I doing here? I thought I was just getting my cavity fixed. Don't get up yet, Brett, said Dr. Mullen. The sedative still needs more time. If you try to stand, you'll do nothing but fall, as right now your equilibrium is off. We had to keep you in a quiet state until your dad got here. So son, in a way I'm impressed looking at these three gorgeous ladies, but you had to know this couldn't last, said his dad. Why did you have to take it so far? Dad, I'm sorry. They saw Peyton and they thought I was you, and well, said Brett, trying to explain. He was just. Well, I mean he was. Did you see how hot they are, Dad? Stop, Brett. These are women, not objects for your personal satisfaction, said his father. I know all the school issues. I'll deal with that myself. This is about you. Plus, how could you have been stupid enough to use my credit card so much? Don't you think they'll figure something is wrong since I can't be overseas and here on the same day? Plus, you were dumb enough to write down my cell instead of yours on the dance school contact list, and I got a call about recital costumes. He may be good in the sack your son, but he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, said Kara, laughing as she looked over at him. Ladies, he may lack common sense, but he played you three pretty well, I must say, said Brett Sr., looking at all of them. He's got a point, girls, said Jan, walking over and squeezing his thigh near his private area. I think we all got a little caught up with that unique little item he's got going for him. I guess so, said Dr. Mullen, fanning herself with a sheet of paper. I know I did. And just FYI. You adults slept with a minor, said Brett Sr. Obviously you didn't realize he's only 17. That would never stand up in court, yelled Dr. Mullen, dropping the sheet. You wouldn't do that to us, Mr. Murray, would you? It could ruin us. I'm a doctor. Jan's a parent. Kara works with children. We'd fight you with everything we've got. We got played by your family. Relax, Dr. Mullen, and you're a dentist, right? Not a real doctor, said Brett Sr., grabbing her arm and calming her down. Seems like many wrongs have happened here, and they'll not be leaving this room as far as I'm concerned. You'll need to control your emotions and hormones, and we'll work this out like adults. I'm sorry, said Dr. Mullen, calming down. This is all just quite hurtful. I thought we had something. Maybe it's just me. I've been working so much and just been so lonely. Well, for me, he just filled a void, honestly, but I do hate getting played, said Kara. I'm 19, so 17 is cool. I just thought he was much older, but I did really like him. For me it was just amazing sex, honestly. Jan giggled. I was never looking for a steady boyfriend, but it seemed perfect because my son's got a crush on Peyton and they're so cute together. I guess I accidentally enhanced the situation doing his hair, but who knew? I remember how cute she looked the first time I put her pigtails. Maybe I was jaded by that, but I never would have guessed she was a he. I still can't believe it. We've got more to talk about than I even imagined, ladies, said Brett Sr., looking at them. Let's figure out how to put this behind all of us. Well, you can all start that and I'll be right back, said Kara. I need to call my boss and come up with an excuse for why Peyton can't make the photo shoot. She's calling and texting nonstop since Jan dragged him out of there. They'll be expecting her in 30 minutes, and flipping out that we'll be breaking the contract. What contract? Said Brett Sr. Brett signed a contract for Peyton, allowing them to use Peyton in a photo shoot for the brochure, said Tara. Now we're stuck with no one her age, as they've already gone home and changed most likely. We won't be breaking it then, said Brett Sr. Go ahead and take him. Great, I'll send him in my car service with Francine so we can keep talking, said Dr. Mullen, dialing her receptionist. May as well send him out with a bang, doing some lovely poses. What the heck? Chirped Peyton. No way, Dad. What was that, Princess? Said his father, puffing out his chest. Should we make this worse than it already is? Now shut up and act all cute and girly like you've been doing all week. Whatever, muttered Peyton, deathly afraid of his father as he gave him a look to kill. Good, now do everything they say and this should give me enough good blackmail material for the rest of your life, said his father. I would doubt I'll ever have a behavioral problem with you again. Yes, sir, said Peyton, hanging his head as Francine came in and got him. She took Peyton outside as he sat with her in the back of the car, afraid to cause a fuss. She barely said a word to him, talking on the phone the entire time until finally they arrived at a private photography studio. Peyton did as he was told, smiling and posing with a number of other girls of different ages, all in their dance costumes. He was the youngest in the group and knew this wasn't going to be good as he saw the other girls being handed new costumes heading off to change. "No reason to be shy, Peyton," said Francine, taking him to a dressing room. "I have little brothers, so I've seen it all. Just no way are they pretty like you." Peyton had no humility left as Francine helped him off with his costume and tights. He lifted his left leg and then his right as she rolled the thick white dance skins over his legs. On his feet she slid on white silk ballet slippers and then wasted no time as he stepped into a satin white glittery bodysuit. She delicately pulled the headband from around his curls, making sure the pins and combs didn't move, and he stepped into a rigid 6-layered white crinoline tutu with silver glittered accents throughout. She took his hand as he brought him back out to the photographer, where they adjusted his makeup and placed a delicate rhinestone tiara around his curls and pinned it on. He was posed representing the tiniest ballerina, before they changed his outfit again and again. He found himself in shoot after shoot dressed as a salsa dancer, cowgirl, and then finally a little fairy. "Finally ready to go home," said Francine as she changed him one last time. "Jan's here now and she'll fix your hair okay." "Oh, thank goodness," said Peyton, happy he was almost done as Jan came in. "I hope it's all over finally." "Having fun, cutie?" said Jan, gently removing the combs and pins, releasing all his curls. "I bet that feels better." "It does," said Peyton as she took her fingernail, pushing curls to each side, parting his hair. "You'll need a lot of shampoo and conditioner once we're ready to wash out this set," said Jan, plugging in a large barreled iron in the wall. "Now be still so I don't hurt you, because even after everything I wouldn't want that." Peyton was wincing as she was separating and pulling, and before he knew it he felt her tugging tight on the right-hand side. He obviously knew this feel as she worked on the left, and then it was strange as she brushed his bangs away from the rest of his hair, breaking the gel bond. She lifted his chin, clamping down with her iron as she rolled them under, and then took a tissue, wiping off his lipstick. She took a tube of clear gloss from her purse as he remembered the strawberry taste, and within a moment she was putting everything away. "See, all's back to normal now, sweetie," said Jan, pulling off the false lashes. "Feel better?" "Better," said Peyton, turning and seeing his reflection. "Slightly, I guess." Peyton turned, seeing himself normal in some strange way as he was back in a frilly dress. He may have been accustomed to it now, but he was certainly not happy to seeing himself in the pretty A-line mint green satin dress. He looked as young as ever as he stepped forward as the large bell-type dress swung as one held out by a parent under wire. It was so toddler-like, with short ruffled sleeves and a huge matching satin sash tied in a bow at the waistline. He was used to himself in white tights and buckled shoes, but the ruffles of the white petticoats on his legs peeking out from under his dress added a whole new dimension to the sickening feeling in his stomach. He didn't need to see his reflection to know what Jan had done to his hair, as his high dangling pigtails and bangs were back, only this time the pigtails had exploded with the tight ringlets which she held in place behind two huge mint green bows. "Come on, sweetie," said Jan, dragging him out of the room. "Everyone's waiting in the next room. Let's go see Daddy and Big Sis." "Big Sister?" sighed Peyton, covering his mouth and then smiling as they walked in. Peyton was totally surprised as he instantly recognized Brett's now made-up face. His brother's macho look was now totally gone as he stood there annoyed, leaning against the wall with his arms folded, holding his little pocketbook. Peyton could barely contain a chuckle as Brett made a pretty decent teenage girl. His entire body had been purged of all hair, including the facial hair that made him appear much older. His legs were totally on display in a knee-length floral halter dress, which had just a little flare to it. It was predominantly white with small coral and salmon flowers throughout it, and on his legs he wore nude nylons above his white peep-toed 3-inch pumps. At the waistline was a thin coral belt, and he obviously had some form of padding as he had a nice C-cup shape at his chest. His toned arms were covered with a waist-length long white sweater, and his fingers were now perfectly manicured with some lovely French tips. His thick wavy dark hair no longer sat in a gelled GQ style just off his shoulders, as it had obviously been extended way down his back and shoulders and colored as it sat in a side part with auburn large loose curls. What was left of his brows had been arched and redone in a matching auburn tint, and his makeup looked flawless, highlighted by a glossed salmon lip gloss. "Don't you think it'll be fun having a big sister?" said Dr. Mullen, causing everyone to share some laughter. "I think Brett just looks to die for." "Oh yeah. Glad it's his turn now," said Peyton, enjoying Brett being feminized and pissed off. "Well, he's got a lot to reverse and make good on," said his father. "He wasted a lot of people's time and money, and it's payback time. Miss Brett starts tonight working with princess parties with Francine, and I would think he should be able to start paying people back in 3 or 4 months. I think more like 6 months, but maybe he'll fool us all and get better tips than we expect. He's going to make a perfect Ariel, January." Dr. Mullen smiled at January. "He is," said Jan, giggling as she looked over at him. "With his complexion, the red hair is gorgeous on him, honestly. Figure 5 mornings a week as my shampoo girl for 2 or 3 months, and 6 weeks of classes being the hair model for my students, and that should pay for what I laid out in outfits for Peyton. Another month or so should cover the cost of the extensions, and all his cosmetics he'll need." "But what about the clothes he'll need?" said Kara. "I'll take him to work around the studio for 3 or 4 nights, and at least that should fund some of his wardrobe. You know Tara won't let him work the studio without looking absolutely perfect. He can work the desk and some retail, but those girls are always dressed professionally." "Good, then it's settled, ladies," said Brett Sr. "She's all yours morning, noon, and night until all is paid, and then we'll see if all's well." "Dad, this is an outrage," said Brett, starting to speak up. "We already had this talk, Missy," his father said sternly. "Now you can either adapt to living under my roof or you can adapt on the street on your own. I'm sure looking like you do now that wouldn't be a great choice." "1 week of fun for months of payback," said Peyton, teasing him. "Hope it was worth it, big sis." "Don't you move a muscle," said Brett Sr., seeing Brett react, ready to take a swing at Peyton. "Break a nail hitting Peyton, and that's even more you have to pay off," teased Jan, as he was turning as red as his hair, boiling with rage. "I'd be quiet and not add to the situation if I were you either, Peyton," said his father, turning and looking at him. "You know what, Kara? I don't need any more time to think about what we discussed. Give me the forms and call them and tell them we're in." "Wonderful," said Kara, smiling and looking at the other ladies. "I think it'll be for the best." "What is?" whined Peyton. "I've been punished enough. The girls and I have had some lengthy discussions while you were posing for your shots. I've decided to enlist the help of Jan for your development this year, and for the rest of the summer you'll be going to Kara's camp," said his father. "What happened the last few years of your life and in school will never happen again. It was a disaster, so we're going with something unorthodox that hopefully will straighten you out." "But Kara runs dance camp," cried Peyton. "I thought this was over, and it was Brett's turn to be punished like this." "Please tell me that isn't what you mean, Dad. Please, I have football camp soon. Young girls need a woman's touch to develop properly, honey, and they don't care about sports, especially football," said January. "We've decided it's in your best interest and Johnny could use a little sister around sometimes." "He'll be thrilled." "This must be some sort of joke," said Peyton. "Dad, you can't be expecting me to live like this. It's been a week from hell, and no way am I doing this for the summer." "Better get used to it, sweetie," said Dr. Mullen, hanging up her phone. "You just got accepted in the exclusive Primstone Academy for girls. I had to pull a lot of strings, and you'll really need to hone your ballet skills this summer to be ready. Luckily they had one opening in this year's 2nd grade class. Don't worry, it's expensive, but Brett will help pay for it." How exciting, said Jan, clapping. I'll fix her hair and get her into her romper in the mornings. If we can get Francine to help with homework at times, it'll work out perfect. Very funny, said Peyton, getting a chuckle. I'm going into fourth, not second, so I'm not falling for all that. This all must be some joke, and it isn't funny. Think again, Peyton, said his father, spinning around his smartphone screen. There's the email I just got confirming, and don't forget you got expelled and left back. With the advanced curriculum, we figured 2 grades back would be better, so you'll be with girls that don't blow you away academically, plus it's a performing arts school, so you'll also be spending time on dance and drama. Dad, please dance all summer and an all-girls school, cried Peyton. Please, I'll study and behave. Let's just get back to normal. This is your new normal, said his father, putting his arm around Dr. Mullen. Your big sister finally has some jobs, so that will keep him busy, and now we've found a good solution for you. Plus, Mandy and I have really gotten to know each other well through all this. We've decided the 2 of us will be doing some world traveling and enjoying each other. You'll be in camp and spending time developing with Jan, so this will work out just perfect. Who knew you'd be such a natural in pigtails? Who knew your boys would make such pretty girls, said Dr. Mullen, planting a quick kiss on Brett and whispering in his ear as she squeezed his thigh. But I'm sure glad he inherited something amazing from you. Yes, he did, said Bert Sr., smiling as he grinned at Brett. But I've got much more experience. How gross, said Brett, beyond annoyed, shaking his head. Don't worry. I'm pretty sure we can make the best of this, Brett, said Francine, whispering in his ear. While your dad is away with Mandy, maybe you and I can have a little fun. You probably didn't know it, but I'm bisexual. I'd love to find out if you're really as endowed as they say you are. Really, said Brett, feeling a touch of relief. Of course I am. Yeah, I've always had a little crush on Ariel, said Francine, casually touching his hand. And I'm mostly into girls, so I'm game if you are. Why not, since I'm stuck like this, said Brett, licking his lips, looking at her. Hopefully you'll squeeze me in between all my jobs and with you watching Peyton. Oh, I doubt I'll be doing much sitting for your little sis, said Francine, smiling. I think between camp and his new school there won't be much time. Plus, your dad seemed pretty committed to allowing Jan to enjoy the pretty little girl she's always wanted, figuring this would be best to fix his behavioral issues. I know, chuckled Brett. That's so perfect. I'm thinking he'll be spending most of his time stressing about the dresses and pigtails and the rest of his time running from Johnny. Good, then you and me tonight, said Francine, whispering in his ear. I'm feeling pretty hot for you. Awesome. It's a date, said Brett happily. Don't get crazy, Brett. It's just about sex. You know, the same way you used Dr. Mullen and the other ladies. Tables have turned now, girlfriend, and this should be hot. You're my little bitch whenever I need one, and I plan on exploiting that. Plus, I've already got a boyfriend, you know, said Francine, wrapping his thigh. But you'll be dating soon. I hear you're great in bed and you make one sexy girl, so this should be exciting. Tomorrow night's your date, dear, said Dr. Mullen, overhearing the end of the conversation. I bought you the sexiest dress, some stilettos, and you're getting your hair done at 6 p.m. Trust me, you're going to turn heads. I think you're going to love him. He's gorgeous, and together you'll make a beautiful couple. What? You're kidding, right? Whined Brett, beginning to sweat. No fucking way. All this shit is bad enough with all these girls' jobs and being Francine's toy. No way am I going on a date. That is not an option. Honey, options are things you don't have right now, my pretty little redhead, said Dr. Mullen, squeezing his cheeks. Don't worry, your new boyfriend's fully aware of your situation and very excited about meeting you, I must say. I think you two will hit it off immediately. But hey, if not, it really doesn't matter because either way, sweetie, welcome to the girls' team. And don't worry, I'm sure he's not expecting everything on the first date, but I did pack your purse with some lubricants just in case. I hear he makes you look tiny, and who knows, maybe you'll get away with oral on the first date just like ours. Either way, he's a hopeless romantic, so I'm sure it'll be slow and steady. Enjoy, princess. Please, Doc, said Brett, breaking down in tears. I don't deserve this. I'm no princess. Could have fooled me, sweetie, in the mermaid outfit, teased Dr. Mullen. Plus, you won't feel that way soon. With the amount of hormones you're on, you'll feel princess-like in no time.